Commander Hyunwoo Kim stood at the observation deck of Luna Station and watched the stars that no longer looked friendly. The communication array had been buzzing for 3 hours since the transmission arrived from deep space. Every officer on the station knew something big was happening, but only Hyunwoo had clearance to hear the actual message. The alien voices spoke in perfect human language through their translation devices, and their words made his blood run cold. The Galactic Council had given Earth 30 days to surrender completely to their authority or face total destruction. Hyunwoo read the message again on his tablet and felt the weight of 8 billion human lives pressing down on his shoulders. The aliens listed humanity's crimes against galactic peace and stability. They said humans expanded too fast and developed technology too quickly. They called humanity dangerous and unpredictable. They said Earth was a threat that needed to be controlled or eliminated. Dr. So-Young Park arrived at the station 12 hours after the message came through. She was Earth's best expert on alien biology and behavior. Her transport ship docked at Luna Station just as the first reports started coming in from the outer detection networks. The aliens were not just making threats. They were backing up their words with the largest military fleet anyone had ever seen. So-Young met Hyunwoo in the main briefing room where holographic displays showed the current positions of alien vessels throughout the solar system. Red dots marked enemy ships, and there were so many red dots that the display looked like it had a rash. 50,000 alien warships had taken positions around the sun and were moving into attack formations. Each ship was bigger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. "They have been watching us for a long time," So-Young said as she studied the fleet movements. "These ships come from 12 different species, and they all have one thing in common. They are all more advanced than us." She pointed to a cluster of triangle-shaped vessels near Mars. "Those are Kethrin battleships. Each one can destroy our biggest space station with a single shot." Her finger moved to another group of ships that looked like flying crystals. "The Velox bring their mind control technology. They can take over human brains from orbit." Hyunwoo felt sick as he listened to the briefing. Earth's combined space Navy had less than 200 ships, and most of them were cargo vessels or mining platforms with basic weapons attached. The human race had been focused on expansion and exploration rather than military power. Now that decision looked like it might be the end of everything. Meanwhile, on Earth, far beneath the mountains of Korea, something very different was happening. Director Jin-Ho Lee sat in a control room that officially did not exist. The room was carved from solid rock 3 miles underground and filled with displays that showed information no government would ever admit to having. Jin-Ho had been waiting for this day for his entire career, and now it was finally here. The mountain facility had been monitoring alien communications for over 200 years. They knew about the Galactic Council long before the first official contact happened. They had been preparing for this exact situation since the early days of human spaceflight. Jin-Ho activated communication protocols that had been dormant for decades and sent coded messages to similar facilities hidden under mountain ranges all over the planet. The Rocky Mountains in North America responded first, followed by the Andes in South America. The Alps in Europe came online next, and then the Himalayas in Asia. Signals came back from the Atlas Mountains in Africa and the Great Dividing Range in Australia. Every major mountain range on Earth was connected to the same network, and all of them were coming alive at the same time. Captain Da-Yun Cho was conducting routine patrol duties near the asteroid belt when her ship received an encrypted message that changed everything. The transmission used codes she had learned in training but never expected to see in real life. Her orders were to return to Earth immediately and report to coordinates that made no sense. The location was in the middle of the Himalayan mountain range where no human base was supposed to exist. Da-Yun's ship was small and fast, which made the journey back to Earth take only 18 hours. As she got closer to the planet, she could see the alien fleet positioning itself for attack. The enemy ships were massive and sleek, and they moved with perfect coordination. Her own vessel looked like a toy compared to the alien warships, but her orders were clear. She had to ignore the alien fleet and land at the impossible coordinates. The landing site appeared to be nothing more than a flat area between 2 mountain peaks. Da-Un brought her ship down carefully and wondered if she had made a mistake with the navigation. Then the ground began to move. What she had thought was solid rock turned out to be an enormous hidden door. The mountains opened like a flower and revealed a landing bay that stretched down into the earth as far as her sensors could reach. Da-un piloted her ship into the opening and watched in amazement as the false mountain surface closed above her. Guide lights led her deeper underground through tunnels that were obviously artificial, but built on a scale that seemed impossible. The tunnels were wide enough for ships much larger than hers, and they extended in all directions through the solid rock. She landed on a platform that automatically moved her ship to a parking area filled with other vessels. Some of the ships looked familiar, like standard Earth military designs, but others were completely unknown. There were craft that seemed to be made of living metal, and others that glowed with their own internal light. All of them had human markings, but the technology looked far more advanced than anything she had seen before. A woman in military uniform met Da-un as she climbed out of her ship. The woman introduced herself as Admiral Tae-min Kong and explained that Da-un was now part of the most classified operation in human history. The Admiral's uniform had insignia that Da-un did not recognize, and her rank was higher than anyone Da-un had ever met. "Everything you think you know about human space capability is wrong," Admiral Tae-min said as they walked through corridors carved from mountain stone. "What you see in the regular fleet is what we want the aliens to see. The real human fleet has been building in secret for 2 centuries. Da-un followed the Admiral through passages that led deeper into the mountain. They passed enormous chambers filled with construction equipment and workers in protective suits. The scale of the operation was beyond anything she had imagined. The entire mountain seemed to be hollow and converted into a massive shipyard. "How many people know about this?" Da-un asked, as they rode an elevator that descended for what felt like miles. "About 50 million humans work in the mountain facilities around the world," Admiral Tae-min replied. "They live underground in cities that are completely self-sufficient. Many of them have never seen the surface. This has been their whole life." The elevator finally stopped, and the doors opened to reveal a viewing platform that looked out over an underground ocean. But instead of water, the vast space was filled with spacecraft. Thousands of ships floated in perfect formations and stretched away into the distance until they disappeared in the artificial horizon. The vessels ranged from small fighters to enormous battleships that dwarfed anything in the official Earth fleet. Da-un stared at the sight and felt her understanding of reality shift. Humanity was not the weak and vulnerable species that the aliens thought they were dealing with. Earth had been hiding its true strength for centuries and building the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had made a serious mistake when they decided to threaten the human race. "When do we tell them what they are really facing?" Da-un asked. Admiral Tae-min smiled and checked her chronometer. "In 29 days and 6 hours, she said. "Let them think they have already won. It will make their surprise so much more complete." Captain Da-un Cho followed Admiral Tae-min Kong through tunnels that seemed to go on forever. The mountain had been completely hollowed out and converted into something that looked like a city mixed with a factory mixed with a spaceport. Electric vehicles moved through the passages carrying workers and supplies while overhead transport tubes carried cargo to different levels. The air smelled like metal and ozone, and the constant sound of construction echoed from every direction. They took another elevator that went down even deeper into the earth. Da-un watched the level indicators and realized they were now more than 5 miles underground. The elevator moved so smoothly that she could barely feel the motion, but the journey took several minutes. When the doors finally opened, they stepped into a command center that looked more advanced than anything she had seen on the surface. Admiral Tae-min led her to a central platform where dozens of officers worked at stations that showed information from around the world. The displays were filled with data streams and tactical maps and communication feeds from other facilities. Da-un recognized some of the locations, but many others were complete surprises. There were bases under mountains she had never heard of, and construction sites in places that were supposed to be empty wilderness. "Project Deeproot has been running for 218 years, Admiral Tae-min explained as they looked at the global network display. "It started when we detected the first alien radio signals and realized we were not alone in the universe. The world governments decided that humanity needed to be prepared for contact, but they also decided that we should not appear threatening." The Admiral called up historical files that showed the early days of the project. The first alien signals had been detected by radio telescopes in the late 20th century, but the governments had kept the discovery secret. Instead of announcing contact to the world, they had begun the largest construction project in human history. They had started digging into mountains and building hidden cities and developing technology that was far beyond what they showed to the public. Engineer Boram Yoon joined them at the command platform and began explaining the technical details of what they were seeing. She was a small woman with bright eyes who spoke very fast and gestured constantly with her hands. Her specialty was the new materials that made the hidden fleet possible. "The ships you saw are built with phase steel," Boram said as she called up holographic displays of ship construction. "The metal can exist in multiple dimensions at the same time, which makes it almost impossible to destroy. Traditional weapons pass right through it when the ship is phased, and energy weapons are absorbed and redirected." Da-un watched demonstrations of the phase steel technology and felt her brain struggling to understand what she was seeing. The metal samples seemed to flicker in and out of existence while maintaining their structural integrity. Weapons fired at the samples passed through them without causing any damage, but the metal could become solid again in an instant. "How do you make something like this?" Da-un asked, as she reached toward one of the samples and felt her hand pass through it, like it was made of air. "We learned it from them," Boram replied and pointed upward toward the surface. "The aliens have been visiting Earth for centuries, and sometimes they crash. We have been collecting their technology and improving on it for generations. What they abandoned as too dangerous, we developed into weapons." The engineer showed Da-un through workshops where teams of humans worked alongside machines that seemed to be alive. The fabrication units grew ship components rather than building them, and the process looked more like gardening than manufacturing. Workers tended to metal plants that sprouted hull sections and engine components, while organic computers calculated stress patterns and design improvements. General Sung-Ho Ryu arrived to brief Da-un on the overall scope of the project. He was a tall man with gray hair who had spent his entire career working in the mountain facilities. His family had been part of Deep Root for 4 generations, and he had been born in the underground cities. The surface world was as foreign to him as an alien planet. 1,300,000 ships, General Sung-Ho said as he showed Da-un the production numbers. "Every mountain range on Earth has been converted to shipyard facilities. We have been building constantly for over 2 centuries, and we have never stopped. The aliens think they are facing a young species with primitive technology, but they are about to meet the most advanced fleet in the galaxy." The general took her to observation decks that looked out over different sections of the underground shipyard. Each level specialized in different types of vessels, and the variety was incredible. There were fighters so small that one person could pilot them, and battleships so large that they had their own internal ecosystems. Some ships were designed for direct combat, while others were built for support roles or special missions. "The crews live here too," General Sung-Ho explained as they passed through residential areas that looked like underground cities. "We have schools and hospitals and entertainment facilities. Some people have spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. They were born here and trained here, and they know that their purpose is to defend humanity when the time comes." Da-un met families who had lived underground for generations. Children played in parks that were carved from solid rock and lit by artificial suns that provided perfect daylight. The communities were completely self-sufficient, with farms that grew food in hydroponic gardens and factories that produced everything needed for daily life. The people seemed happy and healthy, but they all shared a sense of purpose that was focused on the mission above. Dr. Yeon Soo-han was the chief architect of the artificial intelligence systems that controlled the fleet. She met Da-un in a laboratory, filled with quantum computers that hummed with processing power. The AI system called Gaia was responsible for coordinating the construction and deployment of the hidden fleet, and it had capabilities that seemed almost magical. "Gaia is not just a computer," Dr. Yeon-soo explained as they watched data streams flowing through fiber optic networks. "It is a quantum consciousness that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It can process information faster than any alien system, and it coordinates the actions of every ship in the fleet through quantum entanglement." The doctor showed Da-un how Gaia communicated with the ship systems through interfaces that responded to human thoughts. The AI could read the intentions of ship crews and adjust vessel performance to match their needs. During combat, the ships would move like extensions of their pilots' bodies rather than separate machines that required manual control. The aliens use artificial intelligence too, but their systems are limited to single dimensions, Dr. Yan-Su continued. Gaia exists in 17 different dimensional layers at once, which gives it tactical advantages that no enemy can counter. It can predict their moves before they make them and coordinate responses across the entire fleet in real time. Colonel Min Jung-yu was responsible for training the crews who would pilot the hidden fleet when the time came for action. She took Da-un to simulation centers where pilots practiced flying ships that could phase through solid matter and appear in multiple locations at once. The training was unlike anything Da-un had experienced, and it required mental abilities that normal humans did not possess. The ships bond with their crews through neural interfaces, Colonel Min Jung explained, as they watched pilots training in chambers filled with quantum field generators. The connection allows direct control of ship systems through thought, but it also means that the ship becomes part of the pilot's consciousness. They think together and act as one unit. Da-un tried one of the training simulations and felt her mind expand as the ship systems connected to her thoughts. She could sense the vessel's capabilities and limitations as if they were part of her own body. The ship responded to her intentions rather than her commands and moved through space with grace and precision that felt natural despite being completely impossible. The simulation showed her flying through asteroid fields at incredible speeds while phasing through obstacles that would normally destroy any ship. She fought against computer-generated alien vessels and found that the human ships could attack from angles that defied conventional physics. The training was exhilarating but also exhausting as her brain struggled to process information from multiple dimensional layers at once. Admiral Tae-min brought Da-un back to the command center where displays showed the current status of alien fleet movements. The enemy ships were continuing to take positions around Earth, and they seemed confident that they faced no serious resistance. Intelligence reports suggested that the aliens expected the conflict to last only a few hours once they began their attack. "They have made one critical error," Admiral Tae-min said as she pointed to tactical analyses of the alien formations. "They assume that space combat follows predictable patterns based on conventional physics. Our ships operate according to quantum principles that make normal tactics useless. When we engage them, they will be fighting an enemy that can attack from dimensions they cannot even detect." Dae-yun studied the alien fleet positions and began to understand the scope of what was about to happen. Admiral Tae-min Kong led Captain Da-un Cho to a secure briefing room deep within the mountain facility where the walls were covered with holographic displays showing the history of galactic civilization. The images told a story that no human had been allowed to know until now. For thousands of years, the Galactic Council had maintained power by destroying or absorbing any species that became too advanced too quickly. Every race that showed rapid military development was eliminated, Admiral Tae-min explained, as the displays showed the fate of various civilizations. The Zalani built a powerful fleet in just 50 years, and the Council destroyed their entire species. The Koroth developed advanced weapons and were forced to submit to Council authority. Any species that appeared threatening was dealt with before they could become a real problem. Da-un watched the historical records and saw the pattern repeated, over and over. Young civilizations would develop space travel and begin expanding into the galaxy. When they reached a certain level of capability, the Council would intervene. Sometimes the intervention was diplomatic pressure backed by overwhelming force. Sometimes it was complete annihilation. The Council had been using the same strategy for millennia, and it had never failed. Humanity chose a different approach. Admiral Tae-min continued as the displays shifted to show Earth's early space development. "When we detected alien signals, we realized that we were not the first intelligent species, and we would not be the last to face this choice. We could develop openly and face certain destruction, or we could hide our true capabilities until we were strong enough to survive." The decision had been made by a secret council of world leaders who understood that humanity's survival depended on deception. They had created two separate space programs. One was public and designed to look primitive and harmless. The other was hidden in the mountains and focused on developing technology that would give humanity a decisive advantage when the inevitable confrontation came. Dr. Yeon-Soo Han joined the briefing to explain how the artificial intelligence system Gaia had been central to the deception strategy. The quantum consciousness had been monitoring alien communications for 2 centuries and learning everything possible about Council technology and tactics. Gaia had also been responsible for ensuring that humanity's public space program appeared appropriately primitive. Every breakthrough that the aliens observed was carefully staged, Dr. Yansu said, as she called up records of humanity's apparent technological development. We would develop new capabilities in the hidden facilities and then release simplified versions to the public programs years later. The aliens saw steady progress that matched their expectations for a young species. The doctor showed Daun examples of how the deception had worked. When humans had developed fusion power in the mountain facilities, they had released fission technology to the public. When they had mastered quantum field manipulation, they had given the surface world improved chemical rockets. The aliens had been watching human development for decades, and everything they saw confirmed that humanity was advancing at a normal pace. Gaia made sure that we never appeared too advanced, Dr. Yansu continued. The AI calculated exactly how much progress we could show without triggering Council intervention. Every space mission and every technological announcement was designed to maintain the illusion that we were a typical developing species. The quantum consciousness had also been responsible for hiding the construction activities in the mountains. Gaia had developed sophisticated sensor screens that made the excavation work invisible to alien surveillance. From orbit, the mountain ranges looked completely natural, while underneath them, the largest construction project in history continued without interruption. Colonel Min Jong-yu demonstrated the true capabilities of the human ships through advanced simulation systems that let Daun experience combat scenarios that seemed impossible. The vessels could phase through solid matter by shifting their dimensional frequency. They could exist in multiple locations simultaneously by spreading their quantum signature across parallel realities. They could coordinate attacks across vast distances through quantum entanglement that operated faster than light. Traditional space combat assumes that ships exist in normal 3-dimensional space, Colonel Min Jung explained as Da-un piloted a simulated fighter through exercises that violated every law of physics she had learned. Our ships operate in 17-dimensional layers at once, which means we can attack from angles that enemy sensors cannot detect and retreat to dimensions that their weapons cannot reach. The training simulation showed Da-un engaging alien vessels that were larger and apparently more powerful than her fighter, but the human ship could phase through enemy attacks and strike vital systems from inside the alien hulls. The enemy weapons were useless against targets that could shift between dimensions faster than their targeting systems could track. Engineer Boram Yoon showed Da-un through workshops where the organic technology hybrid systems were developed and tested. The ships were not just built, but grown using biotechnology that combined living cells with quantum materials. The result was vessels that could repair themselves and adapt to changing conditions during combat. The aliens abandoned biotechnology centuries ago because they considered it too unpredictable, Boram explained, as they watched ship components growing in cultivation tanks. They prefer mechanical systems that follow precise programming. But organic systems can evolve and learn and respond to situations that no programmer could anticipate. The engineer demonstrated how the living ship systems could modify themselves during battle. Hull sections could shift their composition to become more resistant to specific types of weapons. Engines could alter their output characteristics to match changing tactical requirements. Weapon systems could adapt their targeting algorithms based on enemy behavior patterns. Each ship is essentially a living creature that thinks and learns, Boram continued, as they observed tests of the adaptive systems. The vessel bonds with its crew through neural interfaces, and they become a single consciousness that combines human intuition with quantum processing power. The ship knows what the crew wants to do before they consciously decide to do it. General Sung-ho Ryu briefed Da-un on the strategic planning that had guided Project Deep Root for over 2 centuries. The military leadership had studied every aspect of Galactic Council operations and had developed countermeasures for all their standard tactics. The human fleet was designed specifically to neutralize Council advantages while exploiting weaknesses that the aliens did not know they had. Council species rely on standardized technology and predictable formations, General Sung-ho explained, as tactical displays showed typical alien battle patterns. They have not faced a serious challenge for thousands of years, so their tactics have become rigid and conventional. Our ships are designed to operate in ways that their tactical doctrine cannot counter. The general showed Da-Yun how human vessels could coordinate attacks that appeared to come from multiple directions simultaneously. By using quantum entanglement and dimensional phase shifting, the ships could create complex tactical patterns that confused enemy sensors and overwhelmed their defensive systems. The aliens would be fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. President Haiwan Choi arrived at the mountain facility to make the final decision about revealing humanity's true capabilities. She had been briefed on Project Deep Root only after taking office, and the knowledge had changed her understanding of Earth's place in the galaxy. The choice she faced would determine whether humanity survived as an independent species or became another client state of the Galactic Council. The aliens have given us 30 days to surrender, President Haiwan said as she met with the military leadership in the command center. They expect us to negotiate or beg for mercy. Instead, we are going to show them that they have made a serious mistake in judgment. The president authorized the activation of the full fleet and the preparation of all mountain facilities for simultaneous launch operations. Messages went out through quantum communication networks to bases around the world. After 2 centuries of secret construction and training, the moment had finally arrived. Humanity was about to reveal that the species the aliens thought was weak and primitive was actually the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. How long will it take to deploy the full fleet? President Haiwan asked as displays showed status. Reports from facilities around the world. 18 hours for complete deployment, Admiral Taemin replied. But we can begin emergence operations in 6 hours if needed. The aliens will see our ships coming out of the mountains and they will have time to understand what is happening before we engage. Da-Yun felt the tension building as everyone in the command center prepared for the most important moment in human history. The deception that had protected humanity for 2 centuries was about to end. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with a young species that could be easily intimidated or destroyed. Instead, they were about to face the most powerful fleet ever assembled and discover that Earth had been preparing for this confrontation since before their grandparents were born. The 30th day arrived with false dawn breaking over the Himalayan peaks, while 3 miles below the surface, Captain Da-Eun Cho ran final system checks on her fighter squadron. The mountain facility hummed with activity as millions of personnel prepared for the moment that would change galactic history forever. Every display in the command center showed green status lights as the hidden fleet completed its preparation for emergence. Admiral Tai Min Kang stood in the central command platform, watching feeds from observation posts around the world. The Galactic Council fleet had moved into final attack positions during the night, and their ships filled the space around Earth like a swarm of angry insects. 50,000 alien vessels waited for the surrender deadline to expire so they could begin the destruction of human civilization. All mountain facilities report ready for emergence, reported General Sung-Ho Ryu as status updates flowed in from bases around the planet. Rocky Mountains standing by, Andes Mountains ready for launch, Alps facility prepared for deployment, Himalayas ready to open. Every range is green across the board. Da-Yun felt her heart pounding as she climbed into the cockpit of her fighter and connected the neural interface cables to the ports behind her ears. The ship's consciousness flowed into her mind like warm water, and suddenly she could feel the vessel's eagerness to fly. The fighter was alive, and it had been waiting for this moment just as long as she had. The quantum entanglement systems activated, and Da-Eun felt her awareness expand to include every other pilot in the fleet. 1,300,000 minds linked together through Gaia's quantum network, and for a moment, the sensation was overwhelming. Then her training took over, and she learned to filter the inputs so she could focus on her own mission while staying connected to the larger consciousness. President Haiwan Choi gave the final authorization from the surface command bunker, where she had been moved for safety. Her voice carried through the communication networks to every facility around the world, and her words were simple and direct. The mountains will open now. Show them who we really are. The emergence began with the Rocky Mountains in North America, where massive sections of stone that had covered the launch bays for 2 centuries began to move apart. From orbit, the alien sensors detected the motion, but their analysis systems could not understand what they were seeing. The mountains themselves seemed to be coming alive and opening like flowers blooming in fast motion. Admiral Seo Jin Park coordinated the global deployment from her command ship deep beneath the Andes Mountains. Her vessel was one of the largest in the fleet and served as the central coordination node for the emergence operation. Through quantum entanglement networks, she could monitor and control the deployment of ships from every facility simultaneously. "Rocky Mountain emergence proceeding on schedule," she reported as the first human ships began rising from the depths of the North American facility. "Initial wing deployed and forming attack formations. Alien fleet is responding with reconnaissance. Probes, but their sensors cannot get clear readings on our phase steel hulls." The Galactic Council ships had detected unusual activity on Earth's surface, but their instruments were giving them contradictory information. The human vessels appeared to exist and not exist at the same time due to their multi-dimensional quantum signatures. Alien commanders were receiving reports that made no sense, and their tactical computers were unable to process the data. Dayun's fighter squadron emerged from the Himalayan facility, along with thousands of other vessels as the mountain range opened to reveal launch bays that stretched down into the planet's core. Her ship rose through layers of camouflaged openings and finally broke through the surface into the daylight where she could see the sky filled with alien warships. The sight was incredible and terrifying at the same time. The Council fleet covered the sky like a second layer of atmosphere, and their ships were enormous beyond anything she had imagined. Each alien vessel was the size of a city, and they carried enough firepower to destroy continents. But now they were facing something they had never encountered before. Commander Do-Hyun Kim piloted his dreadnought Mountain's Heart as it emerged from the Alps facility in Europe. The massive ship was over 10 kilometers long, and its phase steel hull rippled with quantum energy fields that made it look like a living thing. As it cleared the mountain peaks, the vessel's consciousness reached out through space and touched the minds of nearby alien ships. The first demonstration of human capabilities came when Mountain's Heart approached a Catherine battleship that was blocking its emergence path. Instead of changing course or requesting passage, the human dreadnought simply phased its dimensional frequency and passed directly through the alien vessel's hull. The Catherine ship found itself with human technology materialized inside its vital systems, and its engines shut down as the molecular structure of its power cores was quietly rearranged. "Catherine vessel disabled without firing a shot," Do-Hyun reported through the quantum network. "Their hull integrity is intact, but their ship is completely powerless. Crew is unharmed, but very confused about how we got inside their shields." Fighter. Squadron leader Mi Young Lim led her pilots in the first display of quantum fold engine capabilities as they emerged from the Atlas Mountains in Africa. Her squadron activated their dimensional drives and appeared simultaneously at multiple points around a cluster of Velox crystal ships. The aliens found themselves surrounded by fighters that seemed to exist in several places at once, and their targeting systems could not lock onto vessels that occupied multiple dimensions. The Velox tried to use their mind control technology against the human pilots, but discovered that the neural interfaces connecting the crews to their ships created a quantum consciousness barrier that their telepathic attacks could not penetrate. The alien mind control beams simply passed through the human fighters without effect, while the ships continued their impossible flight patterns. Velox mind control systems are completely ineffective against quantum-linked crews, Mi Young reported, as her fighters demonstrated their ability to phase in and out of normal space. Their telepathic attacks cannot reach consciousness that exists in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Admiral Tae-min watched the emergence proceed exactly as planned, while alien fleet commanders tried to understand what they were facing. The Council ships had been expecting to attack a few thousand primitive human vessels, but instead, they were seeing over 1 million ships emerging from the planet itself. Every mountain range on Earth was opening to reveal hidden shipyards, and the alien fleet was rapidly becoming outnumbered. The human ships did not attack immediately, but instead formed complex three-dimensional patterns around the alien vessels. The formations looked like geometric art, but they were actually tactical positions that gave the human fleet overwhelming advantages in firepower and maneuverability. Each alien ship found itself surrounded by human vessels that could attack from any direction, including from inside their own hulls. "All facilities report full deployment complete," General Sung Ho announced as the last ships emerged from the mountain ranges. 1,300,000 vessels deployed and in position. Alien fleet is surrounded and their escape routes are blocked by ships they cannot detect or target effectively. The Galactic Council fleet commanders finally understood that they were not facing a primitive species, but the most advanced military force they had ever encountered. Emergency communications filled the alien networks as commanders tried to report the situation to their superiors. The humans had not just hidden their technological capabilities, but had developed weapons and tactics that made the Council fleet obsolete. Admiral Tae-min opened communication channels to the alien fleet commanders, and her message was broadcast on all frequencies in every language used by Council species. Her words were calm and professional, but the meaning was absolutely clear. Galactic Council fleet, you are completely surrounded by vessels you cannot fight and cannot escape. Your weapons are useless against our ships, and your tactics are meaningless against our capabilities. You have one choice. Surrender immediately and your crews will be unharmed. The alien fleet commanders held emergency meetings through their communication networks while their ships remained trapped in formations they could not break. Some wanted to fight despite the impossible odds, while others argued for negotiation. A few suggested immediate retreat, but their navigation systems showed that human ships blocked every possible escape route, including hyperspace vectors they thought no one else knew about. Council Fleet Admiral Zarthon of the Kethran species finally transmitted the surrender signal that ended the confrontation before it could become a massacre. His message was brief and filled with the shock of complete defeat. Human fleet, we acknowledge your superior capabilities and surrender our forces. We request terms for the safety of our crews and permission to withdraw. Admiral Taemin's response established the new reality that would govern galactic affairs from that moment forward. Admiral Zarthon, your fleet will be escorted to neutral space where representatives of your council will meet with human diplomats. The terms of our relationship will be determined through negotiation, but the era of council dominance is over. 6 months after the Great Emergence, Ambassador Ji-Hoo Yoon stood before the reformed Galactic Council at Harmony Point Station and looked out at representatives from every species in known space. The neutral station had been built in the months following humanity's revelation, and it orbited a star system that belonged to no single species. The chamber where they met was designed to accommodate the different environmental needs of 12 alien races and the humans who now sat among them as equals. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering that combined human quantum-dimensional technology with the best innovations from every council species. Ships from across the galaxy docked at ports that could accommodate vessels ranging from small diplomatic couriers to massive Kethran battleships. The artificial gravity systems used human field generators while the life support networks incorporated Velox biotechnology and Zelani environmental controls. Dr. So-Young Park had been working with alien scientists for months to establish joint research initiatives that were revolutionizing galactic science. Her laboratories on Harmony Point brought together researchers from every known species to study phenomena that no single race could have understood alone. The combination of human dimensional technology with alien expertise in fields like temporal mechanics and consciousness transfer was producing breakthrough discoveries almost daily. The Quantum Biological Synthesis Project has achieved stable fusion of human organic technology with Kethran crystalline matrices, Dr. So-Young reported to the assembled council. We have created materials that can exist in multiple dimensional states while maintaining biological functions. This opens possibilities for exploration beyond our current galaxy. Fleet Admiral Da-Yun Cho commanded the integration fleet that now patrolled galactic space with ships from multiple species working together under unified command. Her flagship was a hybrid vessel that combined the best elements of human and alien technology. The ship's phase steel hull incorporated Velox neural networks, while the quantum engines used Zelani temporal stabilizers to achieve faster-than-light speeds that no single species had ever reached. The integration had not been easy, and there had been resistance from some council species who found it difficult to accept that their technological superiority was an illusion. The Kethran Empire had initially refused to share their crystal matrix technology until human engineers demonstrated that they could replicate it using quantum dimensional methods that were actually more efficient than the original Kethran techniques. Joint patrol operations have eliminated piracy in the outer spiral regions, Admiral Dae-un reported during the council session. Combined fleets using human dimensional drives and alien sensor networks can respond to threats faster than any single species fleet ever could. Crime rates in contested systems have dropped by 80% since the integration began. Director Jin-Ho Lee had emerged from his mountain facility to oversee the opening of humanity's hidden bases to carefully selected alien observers. The revelation of Project Deep Root had shocked the galactic community, but it had also provided opportunities for cooperation that were impossible under the old council system. Alien engineers worked alongside humans in the mountain facilities while learning techniques that would transform their own shipbuilding capabilities. The mountain bases had become centers of learning where species that had been enemies for centuries worked together on projects that benefited everyone. The Himalayas facility hosted a research program that was developing new forms of faster-than-light communication using quantum entanglement principles that humans had mastered. The Rocky Mountains base had become a training center where alien pilots learned to operate ships that could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The knowledge exchange programs have exceeded all projections, Director Jin-Ho explained to the council. Alien researchers have provided insights that have improved our dimensional technology by 30%, while our quantum techniques have solved theoretical problems that some species had been working on for thousands of years. Engineer Bo Ram Yoon demonstrated the latest developments in hybrid technology that combined human organic systems with alien mechanical components. Her workshop on Harmony Point had become famous throughout the galaxy for producing innovations that seemed impossible, until they became routine. Ships grew their own hulls using biotechnology, while their engines operated on principles that merged quantum mechanics with temporal displacement. The Living Ship program has entered full production, Bo Ram announced, as holographic displays showed vessels that looked more like space-dwelling creatures than traditional spacecraft. These ships can repair themselves, adapt to new environments, and evolve their capabilities based on mission requirements. The first transgalactic exploration vessels are ready for launch. The exploration program represented the most ambitious project in galactic history. Humanity had shared their dimensional technology with alien partners to create ships capable of traveling beyond the known galaxy to explore parallel realities and alternate dimensions. The joint crews included representatives from every species, and they were preparing to answer questions about the universe that no one had been able to investigate before. President Haewon Choi addressed the council about the political changes that had transformed galactic civilization in just 6 months. The old council system of dominance and control had been replaced by a cooperative federation where each species maintained independence while contributing to common goals. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy but had instead offered partnership to civilizations that had been trapped in stagnation for millennia. The Federal Charter guarantees the sovereignty of every member species while establishing frameworks for cooperation that benefit everyone, President Haewon explained as the new governmental structure took effect. No species will be forced to submit to the authority of another, but all members agree to share knowledge and resources for common defense and exploration. The charter had been negotiated over months of difficult discussions where representatives from 12 species worked to create a system that respected their different cultures and political structures. The humans had insisted that membership be voluntary and that no species be required to adopt technologies or policies that conflicted with their values. The result was a loose federation that was stronger than the sum of its parts. Dr. Yun-Soo Han presented the latest developments in consciousness research that were being pursued by joint teams of human and alien scientists. The study of how different species experienced reality had led to breakthrough discoveries about the nature of intelligence and awareness. The research was also producing practical applications that improved communication between species and enhanced the performance of hybrid technologies. We have discovered that consciousness itself exists in quantum dimensions that we are only beginning to understand, Dr. Yun-Soo explained as complex equations filled the display screens. Each species accesses different aspects of quantum consciousness, which is why cooperation produces results that no single race could achieve alone. The consciousness research had practical implications for the exploration program as crews needed to maintain mental stability while traveling through dimensional spaces that operated according to unfamiliar physical laws. The joint research teams had developed techniques that allowed mixed species crews to share awareness and coordinate their actions, even when facing phenomena that challenged their basic understanding of reality. Colonel Min Jung-yu had established, training programs that taught mixed crews how to operate the new hybrid vessels that required mental coordination between different types of consciousness. Human pilots learned to work with alien partners whose thought patterns operated on completely different principles, while alien crews discovered that human intuition could compensate for limitations in their logical systems. Cross-species crew. Training has produced performance improvements of over 200%, Colonel Min Jung reported as graduation ceremonies were held for the first integrated exploration teams. Species that approach problems from different mental frameworks can solve challenges that would be impossible for single-species crews. The training programs had become models for cooperation that were being adapted for civilian applications throughout the galaxy. Mixed-species teams were working on everything from terraforming projects to artistic collaborations that created new forms of expression impossible for any single species to achieve alone. Admiral Tai Min Kang had taken command of the first transgalactic exploration vessel Eternal Mountain and was preparing for humanity's most ambitious journey. The ship incorporated the best technology from every species and was crewed by volunteers who understood they might be traveling to destinations from which they could never return. The mission would attempt to reach parallel versions of their own galaxy to answer fundamental questions about the nature of reality itself. Eternal Mountain is ready for dimensional transit, Admiral Taemin announced as final preparations were completed. Our destination is a parallel galaxy where the laws of physics operate differently than in our own reality. If successful, this mission will open unlimited possibilities for exploration and discovery.